Our call to worship is the words of Marjorie C. Squire. Children all, we come together in faith and hope to find what meaning life holds for us, to laugh and sing with one another, to soothe the wounds of daily life, and to grow together in wisdom and love. And now I invite you to please join me in our words for lighting our chalice, speaking as suits your heart in English or Spanish, saying together, we kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Good morning. Welcome to each of you here in the sanctuary and to those joining us online. I'm Mary Beth McNulty, a member of your Worship Associate team. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm so glad to be here with you this first Sunday of the new year at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington. If you are new to our community and you feel brave, would you raise your hand so we can extend a special welcome? Oh, welcome. Thank you. Oh, that was half-hearted. Ooh, let's try again. Welcome. You picked a great Sunday to join us today, as today's guest speaker is our own Martha Dallas. Martha holds a master's degree in theology and education from Union Theological Seminary. She served as first UU's Director of Religious Education from 2006 to 2017, where she was honored to come to know many families and witness the development of scores of children and youth. She recently worked for several years as an independent life cycle celebrant and currently directs after-school programming for elementary kids in Richmond, Vermont. Martha has been a member of FUUSB since 2001. We are here on Abenaki land in Alamikos, the greeting time in the month of January, on the beautiful shores of Petawaba, which means the waters between in the Abenaki language. And in the spirit of this greeting time, we'd like to offer you the chance to share a greeting with your neighbor this morning. We are moving further into respiratory illness season, though, so a wave, head nod, hand to your heart, or a Vulcan salute are all welcome handshake alternatives as you say hello. Thank you. Finally, this morning, I have two announcements. The first is an invitation to the monthly FUUSB Open Mic Coffee House this coming Friday, January 10th, 7 to 9 p.m., right here in the sanctuary. You can share a song, spoken words, or other talent, or just come, listen, and enjoy the fellowship. And I have a special message to you if you started coming sometime this past fall or returned after being away for a while. Today, after the service in the parlors right behind me, there is a meet and greet designed especially for you. It'll last about an hour, though you can stay as long as makes sense for you. Our senior minister, Reverend Karen, will answer your questions, and members of the membership team will warmly welcome you. Friends, just as you are, whatever it took for you to make it here this morning in person or online, you are welcome.
Good morning. My name is Liam, and I'm your music director. I'm trying out a new position here behind this choir mic, so just in case you wondered why things look a little different. Trying out a new place, and that's to try to improve the sound quality for our listeners on our stream. So just so you know why I'm moving around. I'd now invite you to please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 301, Touch the Earth and Reach the Sky.
Today our reading is an excerpt from the podcast, Science Friday, from October 13th, 2023, entitled, A Mathematician Asks, Is Math Real? With guest mathematician Dr. Eugenia Chang. If math is largely made up of abstract concepts, how do we know that it's real? What does real mean anyway? I think the thing is that even if math isn't real, it can still help us with real things. That the fact that it's made up is part of where its power comes from. And I think that it's a bit like fiction. I love reading fiction. I know that some people don't like reading fiction, and they only want to read nonfiction, but I love reading fiction. And that's made up. But often, it can give us really deep insight into the actual world and our actual lives, even though it was made up. And I think sometimes it's because it was made up. A great novelist or a great film writer or playwright can make up things that are particularly moving to us and relevant to us. Spiritual practices come in many forms within our Sunday service. Generosity, spoken meditation, stillness, music, creating space for our joys, for our sorrows, and for our gratitude. In this portion of our Sunday service, each of us will have the chance to enter into those communal practices to which we are drawn, to hold space and to offer our loving witness for each other. This morning, we're going to practice a meditation poem, or a gatha. A gatha links words to breath as a way of helping us focus our attention to the present moment. Today's gatha is based on the words of Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Please settle yourself into whatever position feels comfortable to you. You can close your eyes, you can open them, and I ask you to just breathe as you like, I share the words of the gatha with you. I know I am breathing in. I know I am breathing out. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. I dwell in the present moment. I know it is a precious moment. I'll add that it's been said as another way of helping his students focus on gratitude in the present moment. Thich Nhat Hanh told them, "Every day, be grateful you do not have a toothache." When the music plays in just a moment, we invite you to come forward to mark a joy, a sorrow, or a gratitude in your life by moving a stone from one of the baskets onto the table, creating a representation of our shared lives together in this moment. As you are moved, please come forward along the outer aisles and return to your seat via the center aisle. If you have a gift to add to the offering, you can place it in one of the baskets here at the top of the outer aisles, or you can make your offering online. If you are at home or you wish to remain seated, we invite you to lean into the music as an opportunity for stillness and centering as it makes sense to you. As a justice-seeking spiritual community, our generosity practice includes sharing half of the offering each Sunday. Offerings this month will be shared with the Intervale Center, which implements innovative, replicable, and place-based solutions to address some of agriculture's most pressing problems. They are transforming the food system from one that is degrading, anonymous, and industrial to one that is restorative, familiar, and human scale, and are working to foster a local food economy that is good for people and the planet. Thank you. Please join me in our offering dedication. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
Good morning, First UU. So I am so grateful to be speaking here this morning to a congregation I joined 24 years ago, and from a chancel that recalls to me countless worship memories from my time as your director of religious education. What I'm sharing about this morning are thoughts that I've been ruminating on for several years, and it has been gratifying and fulfilling to develop them into a worship service. But first, some context by way of my theological journey. I was not raised UU, but rather Episcopalian, where I learned about God's existence, along with, of course, Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Brief side story because I can't resist. Decades ago, at a dinner around my grandparents' dining table, my family was discussing the Holy Trinity. I have no memory why. But my sister, who was about 6 at the time, piped up that she knew who they were. "Oh, you do?" replied my grandfather. "Tell us then." "That's easy," she said. "God is the Father, Jesus is his Son, and the Holy Spirit is their little friend." As simple and straightforward as her understanding was, I was more probing and inquisitive about such things. In a college philosophy of religion class, I was compelled by various proofs for God's existence, argued over the centuries, and found much resonance with the idea developed by Martin Buber of God's presence as a liveliness in relationships, both among people and between people and all other creatures, and pretty much anything as I understood it. This God I could relate to, and it explained why a sunset could move me to tears, and why cuddling with my cat could elicit such a sense of calm and contentment, because that was God there. I attended seminary, and in that time and in the years following, I soaked in feminine images of the divine, swapped out he and him for she and her in my prayers, and cultivated the sacredness I found in nature and simplicity and silence. I knew I was a theological liberal, hungry for the fresher, more critical ideas and interpretations. I was a grappler, which suited my draw to Unitarian Universalism, the faith I claimed in 1995. My theological curiosity thereafter suited my 15 years as a UU religious educator, 11 of which I served here. And I loved asking new congregants, "Tell me about the God you don't believe in." This question, for most, elicited a ready response and was a fun way to begin rich conversation. For quite a time, I relished the paradox that God created people just as people created God. Over the decades, my belief in God slowly changed. For one, I didn't give God much thought or attention at all. At one point, I preached here that God was like an old wooden spoon, simple, practical, and useful. God still served as proxy for all we don't or can't understand. God wasn't unlike dark matter, in that I deduced it must be there, everywhere. I just couldn't see it or prove it. I took it on faith. More recently, God to me was becoming diffuse, like mist or fog, the very little substance, soon to be blown away, not much holding it there anymore. But I would very occasionally pray to God, and despite my disloyalty, was glad to know that if I needed God's listening presence, if I believed God to be there, then there God would be. Being a proudly non-doctrinal faith, I know that among you all there is a diversity of theological orientation. Some are atheist, some are theist, and some hedge their bets with the stance of agnosticism. And you faith leaders, bound by the inherent limits of spoken language, attempting to both express the ineffable and relate to the perspectives among their congregations, may reference the great mystery, or spirit of life and love, or ultimate reality, all in their stretch to convey all that we don't understand when we're kinda, sorta suggesting that we mean God. And as my years as a UU have piled up, what matters more to me is how we apply our beliefs in shared values and efforts to bend that proverbial arc of the universe towards greater justice. But my inner theologian was still compelled to ruminate and to check my beliefs against my lived experience. How satisfied was I with the fit of my beliefs on my life? Several years ago, a friend urged me to read the book *Sapiens*, A Brief History of Humankind, by the renowned and prolific historian and philosopher Yuval Noah Harari. What hooked my curiosity initially about this book was the prospect of learning about the other human species that walked the earth at the same time as Homo sapiens. Indeed, 70,000 years ago and more, there were at least 6 kinds of humans on the planet. Neanderthals in Eurasia, Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, the Denisovans in Siberia, and our ancestors, Homo sapiens, in Africa. This book was really about how the other human species died out, yielding to us, sapiens, and how we not only survived as the sole human species, but have taken over the world to the extent of our great peril and that of many other life forms. In retrospect, this book planted a compelling seed in my ruminating mind. That seed, we owe our success as a species to the power of our collective imagination. We're dominant because we make stuff, and we make stuff up. We invent stuff. We tell stories. We imagine, and we fictionalize together. That's the locus of our power. In Harari's words, there are no gods in the universe, no nations, no money, no human rights, no laws, and no justice outside the common imagination of human beings. And he put it this way, too. Large numbers of strangers can cooperate successfully by believing in common myths. Any large-scale human cooperation, whether a modern state, a medieval church, an ancient city, or an archaic tribe, is rooted in common myths that exist only in people's collective imagination. I'll let that settle for a moment, because if you heard my words correctly, you heard that gods, or God with a capital G, and church, think any and all religions, are products of our imagination. They are invented, made up by us. To say this is a bold claim is a gross understatement, and yet it's why *Sapiens* has sold some 25 million copies worldwide and been translated into 65 languages. Harari himself is prepared for the incredulous response of his readers when he states, "How do you cause people to believe in an imagined order such as Christianity, democracy, or capitalism? First," he says, "you never admit that the order is imagined." Clever, huh? It's all imagined. In other words, it's not real. Which brings me to our reading, which Mary Beth nailed, about whether or not mathematics is real. I chose it because Dr. Cheng's arguments about math and the question of its reality can be readily applied to God and to religious ideas and frameworks. Both hang, if you will, on great abstract concepts. And a key statement of Dr. Cheng's from that reading is, the fact that it's made up is part of where its power comes from. In other words, it's powerful to us and for us because we imagined it. Right? Around 45,000 to 200,000 years ago, human burials contained objects that evolutionary archaeologists tell us suggest belief in an afterlife, up to 200,000 years ago, right? Our loved one had died. We didn't just walk away. We stayed, reflected, and imagined about what had occurred, how it felt, and where they had gone. and the ritual objects we buried with them are the earliest evidence we have of spiritual or religious human behavior. And human imaginations began developing religious ideas in a decidedly organized or collective way around 11,000 years ago. There is clear evidence that in the Near East, and likely elsewhere too, around this time we began to settle, to grow crops and abandon our hunter-gatherer lifestyle. To quote good old Wikipedia, the consequences of the Neolithic Revolution included a population explosion and an acceleration in the pace of technological development. The transition from foraging bands to states and empires precipitated more specialized and developed forms of religion that reflected the new social and political environment. While bands and small tribes possess supernatural beliefs, these beliefs do not serve to justify a central authority, justify transfer of wealth, or maintain peace between unrelated individuals. Organized religion emerged as a means of providing social and economic stability. But it didn't passively emerge. Over generations and centuries, we fabricated it. At best, we'll probably only ever theorize as to the early forms of those fabrications, but we can look to the power dynamic between parents and children to remind us of the imagination's ability to appease and control groups. Beings with magic-like powers, such as Santa Claus, who promises toys to children in exchange for good behavior. And the tooth fairy, whose promise of money under your pillow the next morning eclipses the fear and pain of extracting that loose one, are alive and well in our collective imaginations. Religion's effectiveness in keeping our behavior in check and easing our anxieties, particularly about death, ensured its staying power across millennia through many fractures and branches of development into the breadth of religious belief humans espouse today. And it's no accident that gods are often parental figures. And here I want to restate that it's our imagination that has given us such capacity as a species. All these fictions we've crafted, these tales we've woven to knit together our communities, that's what makes us human. It's awesome stuff. In the words of poet Muriel Rukeyser, the universe is not made of atoms. It's made of stories. And Rukeyser is in good company. Albert Einstein famously said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand." Indeed, he would not have developed the theory of relativity were it not for the thought experiments he worked out in his imagination. What's tough is the lesser than value we tend to place on imagination, as if it must be measured against reality. Look at how dictionary.com defines imaginary: existing only in the imagination, lacking factual reality, formed or characterized imaginatively or arbitrarily. And the Cambridge Dictionary states that the imaginary is created by and exists only in the mind, and provides the following synonyms: made up, make-believe, non-existent, fantastic. Actually, fantastic kind of works with my argument. Because imagination has a real and rich purpose. To quote Psychology Today, unlike perception, imagination is not dependent on external sensory information taken from what a person can see, hear, feel, taste, or touch in the moment. Rather, it's generated from within, and often unconsciously influenced by memories and feelings. Humans use imagination for a variety of reasons: to acquire experience and knowledge about the world, to better understand another person's perspective, to solve problems, to create and interact with artistic works, and more. And contrary to our association of imagination with children and play, humans grow more imaginative as we age. Speaking about a psychological research study she concluded, the team's leader states, "These new findings dispel the commonly held belief that humans lose their imagines as they age. Instead, it shows that our imaginations continue to grow and change even throughout adulthood, with the over 60s actually showing the most originality. Adults' imaginations can be just as vivid as children's. We just need the freedom of the right environment and opportunity to explore the limits of our imagination." All we've imagined, created, and told one another about our world, all the culture that we've collectively enlivened, all the mantles of understanding we've taken up from those who came before us and then chosen to pass on to those coming up in our wake. When we are wise and discerning, we affirm and promote that which rings with truth, with goodness. As Harari points out, suffering is the real yardstick that people should use to evaluate whether the stories we invent are beneficial or harmful. If belief in a story reduces suffering, that's a good story. So in my current theological thinking, there is no God, really. In other words, God is not real. And I actually find that liberating. It allows my grappling mind to rest because it makes logical sense. Truth is alive and shining wherever shared beliefs affirm it. when our stories guide us in the ways of justice and peace and goodness for one another, that's a win in my book. That's religion that matters, that belongs in the world. So may the stories, the beliefs, and the values that today's worship inspires in your hearts, in your minds, in your imaginations, may they, and may you each be a blessing to the world in all that you are, all that you choose, all that you do, both now and in all your days. So may it be.
A brief announcement before our closing hymn. I just wanted to congratulate a couple of young members of our congregation who are in the production of Hadestown in the North. Is it okay to say their names, you think? Adele, who's up in our AV booth at the moment, and Penny DeRosert. Hadestown is an amazing musical. It is actually very relevant to our topic today because it has to do with mythology, and some of the pagan and earth-centered members of our congregation may find it very spiritually moving. It is an incredible piece of art, regardless. And I encourage you to go see it. There's one more performance this afternoon at 2 o'clock, or 4 o'clock. Get there early. The 2 have been capacity. They're really, really great. All right, please rise as you are able and join us in singing hymn number 309, Earth is Our Homeland.
Please join together in these words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Our closing words are those of Sophia Lyon-Fahs, a great mother of our UU religious education programs. We do not divide experiences into compartments and say, these are religious, those are secular. These problems are in the realm of ethics, those have no ethical implications. Life becomes religious and ethical whenever we make it so. When some new light is seen, when some deeper appreciation is felt, when some larger outlook is gained, when some nobler purpose is formed, when some task is well done. The function of the church for both young and old is not to give us on Sunday certain religious kinds of experiences different from the experiences of every day. The function of the church is rather to teach us how to put religious and ethical qualities into all kinds of experiences.